This is the second part of how I found my wife lying in bed with another man. If you want to see the first part, check out the first link in the description. Update 5. Someone asked me of my previous post about Rebecca and if I've had any interaction with her. I will explain where things stand here as well. I have not seen or communicated with Becca at all since that fateful morning. I do not know how prominent she now is in Mari's life. I don't know if they have had any contact but would imagine they have. The kids have not mentioned Rebecca at all. What they tell me is the extent of what I know, which isn't a lot. However, a few weeks after all hell broke loose, I confided in an old friend exactly what was going on. I chose the friend I did because his wife is a notorious gossip. She too is a good friend of mine. So, I didn't feel any guilt for using one of her negative traits for my benefit. To those that don't know, Becca owns her own salon that employs 9 people besides her, when fully staffed. Since word slowly spread through the friend group, 2 stylists have left Becca's salon. I cannot know if they left for greener pastures or as a protest for her role in my marriage failing. But I can hope. When things are finalized, I will be airing her dirty laundry freely and often. If that causes some people to not want to work for her or visit her salon, that's great. But I will have to wait to verify if my actions bring her any misery. One thing of note is that I ran into Mari's sister in the grocery store. She hugged me and apologized for her sister's stupidity and immorality. I have no doubt many here would have told me to have no contact with her since she is of the enemy camp. But I have always liked Mandy and her husband Doug. So, I invited them over with their children to enjoy the pool. We cooked out and Doug looked after the kids and the grill while Mandy and I talked. We made every attempt to not let any of the kids overhear our conversation. Thankfully they were all distracted by the pool and plenty of good food to let us talk at length. To make a long story short, Mari's family knew she cheated on me with more than one man. But Mari blew smoke up their collective asses when it came to any admissions about body counts. Mandy and her parents were told Mari had a couple of short-term affairs after Michael was born until she got caught. When she used the term a couple, I asked how many Mandy considered a couple. She replied 2 or 3. I went and got the folder containing just text exchanges between Mari and guys she'd sexted for Mandy to view. As she perused through the pages, I explained we were able to verify 47 different guys Mari had engaged in sexual activity since Michael was born. I made sure to explain that those 47 were just the tip of the iceberg since we knew she had often arranged ONSs via various phone apps. Mandy didn't know what to say when she heard Mari's verified body count. She wanted to immediately call her parents to inform them and to curse her sister out. Mari's lack of being forthcoming about the number of men she cheated with was enough bad news to wrap her head around. Then I put 2 and 2 together and realized nobody in Mari's family had yet been told I am not Carrie's father. I'm not sure who was more pissed off about that fact, Mandy or me. But Doug had to stop grilling to attend to his wife due to the tears she couldn't hold back. She walked around to my side of the picnic table and gave me a hug as she told me repeatedly she was so sorry. Doug was stunned. He gave me a pat on the back after making sure Mandy was okay and told me we'd go out for drinks later that week. My soon-to-be ex-wife may be a piece of dog shit. But her family and the people that married into that family seem to be as good as gold. But I will continue being cautious about how much trust one allow. I filled her in on what actually happened that morning and how I came to find out paternity results. She was stunned to say the least. When she told me she wished I'd punched Becca squarely in the nose, I had to ask Mandy's opinion of Becca. Mandy said she never liked Rebecca even as kids. Mandy is 4 years older than Mari, Becca and me. She was a senior when we were freshmen in high school. Mandy said that more than once she caught Becca stealing makeup from her room but was unapologetic. She said she despised Rebecca because she'd always been manipulative and loved causing drama for others. She even told me she tried to be a big sister role model for Becca, especially after Rebecca's dad divorced her mom. But Mandy said she'd always been an ungrateful little bitch who wouldn't listen to anyone. I asked if she knew Mari actually wanted Becca as her maid of honor initially. She never said yes or no, but the profane stream of consciousness let me know she was unaware. I filled her in on things Mari had told me via letter and in the company of attorneys. She was as shocked over Mari's reasoning as much as anyone. She stated their parents hadn't raised them to be like that. She said her sister had declared she never wanted to be with anyone but me long before high school. I'm not sure if that means Mari was deceiving herself from a young age or feelings changed. I just know humans cannot truly love someone and offer their body freely to others. Either the love was never real, or it had died long before I knew it. Mari has made the claim that her heart now and has always belonged to me. I now know that was total bullshit, and I wonder if she was even capable of love. Not that it matters now, of course. If her heart truly belonged to me, I'd be selling it for transplant to the highest bidder, even though I know it's defective. After lunch the kids kept playing, so I got to talk with Doug and Mandy at length. She filled him in while I went and got ice cream for the kids and served them. When I got back, I could see tears in Doug's eyes, and he gave me a long brotherly hug before I sat back down. He asked about the guy I caught Mari with and how much damage I did. All I could tell him was when I left the guy was unconscious and his lower eyelid on the left side looked like it belonged to a hound dog due to sagging. No police ever contacted me. So, I knew his friend never took him to the cops. But I knew enough to know his orbital bone fracture would require surgery, and I never got the bill. Doug said I should have killed the guy. I told him if Mari and Becca hadn't jumped on my back to weigh me down, I probably would have. But I'm glad I didn't. Doug asked if anyone had any idea who Carrie's father actually is. I explained the soon-to-be ex had slept around with far too many guys to know. But I told him the search will go into high gear once all divorce and civil proceedings have been completed. They were both glad to know Mari will get slaughtered in the divorce. They were both glad to know that therapy for all three of us had helped tremendously. When I told them I was anxious for Mari to start working again so she could pay child support and whatever civil fine she ended up owing, they laughed. Doug said if paternity fraud was a crime, Mari would get the death penalty. I told him Mari may as well have committed maternity fraud because any woman that could do what she did was no mother at all. About an hour after they left, my phone started blowing up with calls and texts. The caller ID let me know Mari's mom and dad were both reaching out, as well as calls and texts from numbers with no ID. Then Mandy called and I answered. I could hear her, but there was a lot of screaming and yelling in the background. She stepped outside away from the noise to tell me she'd filled her parents in on all of the truth. Her dad was busy throwing Mari's belongings into her car. Her mom cried and told her what a disappointment she'd become and how ashamed they're to have raised such a slut. Call me old-fashioned. But when your mother calls you a slut, it's pretty safe to say you stayed on the train to Horseville 1, 2, or even 47 too many stops. I could hear Mari crying and pleading that she had no place to go. Instead of gloating she was getting some of what was coming to her, I thought of the kids. I have no issue with Carrie and Michael staying at their grandparents' house. But anywhere else I could think where Mari might go, there was no way in hell I was going to allow them to stay with her. If she went to Rebecca's, there was no damn way I'd allow them to be anywhere around that bimbo beautician. Even if she somehow managed to secure a hotel room with her limited earnings, I didn't trust her not to have some random boy stay over. I was happy her family knew some of the truth. But I knew that doing so was going to cause visitation issues. Yet if she didn't find a stable and safe place to stay, I knew the court wouldn't allow any form of unsupervised visitation. Getting to see her kids with supervision for an hour or two every other weekend was going to hurt. But it was a grave she dug for herself with lies and a hellhole vagina. If it meant a homeless shelter or the actual gutter itself, I didn't and still don't care. Mandy and I were still on the phone when I heard Mari come outside and ask if it was me on the phone. Mandy asked what I wanted her to tell Mari. I probably shouldn't have said the truth, because Mari snatched Mandy's phone and began to plead with me. She asked why I was so intent on destroying her life. I simply replied because she destroyed mine. She urged I could have my life back if I'd just forgive her. I told her that life was over and never actually existed due to her lies. Again, she lied and swore she loved me. I told her in a not-so-eloquent way that the only thing she loved in this life was herself and cock. She insisted none of them meant anything to her. I told Mari they all meant more to her than me or her family's security, or she wouldn't have risked it all over and over. She asked why I had ratted her out to her sister and parents. I asked why she hadn't been honest with them about everything, especially about me not being Carrie's father. She cursed at me and said I am her father. I cursed back and told her I'm Carrie's dad and always will be. But she should have at the very least told her family the truth. She said that her parents were disowning her and kicking her out. I told her I'd heard, I was happy to hear, and I was going to do everything in my power to make things worse. She said she loves me and asked how I could be so cruel to someone that loves me. I told her she should have been asking herself that question 6 years ago. I told her I knew she felt regret, simply because she was losing everything and now people are hearing the truth. But I explained what she did makes her worthy of being shunned as well as spoken ill of and toward. What she was experiencing from her family is what she in fact deserves. Hawthorne gave Scarlet Letters a bad name, she'd be a worthy candidate. 3 days later Nadia called and said Mari's attorney called to try and set up another time to meet together. We set that meeting up for last Friday at Nadia's office. Needless to say, I didn't want to see or talk to her. But I knew being essentially homeless would have implications on judicial custody decisions. As soon as we sat down together, her lawyer informed me that Mari had been living in her car since her parents kicked her out. I asked why she didn't stay at Rebecca's since the bitch helped get her into her situation. Mari didn't respond. Mari asked instead if there was any way I'd let her come home or if we could do marriage counseling. I told her she needed to ask her parents if she could come home. The house I and her children lived in was off limits to hussies, hoes, and harlots. She and Becca were to stay far away. As far as MC went, she was free to try it with whomever was stupid enough to marry her next. But I was certain she could never be faithful to anyone after living like that for so long. Her lawyer objected to my language and the harshness of my words. I told him he was a money-grubbing shit just for representing such a tramp and asked if she was paying her legal bills via OnlyFans or just blowing him. Nadia put her hand on my shoulder to calm things down and asked if we could all be more civil. I asked to take a break because I'd already loaded my next verbal salvo, and I needed to let off some steam. We took a 20-minute break, and I went out to my car just to get away from everyone. I thought about writing Home Sweet Home with my key on the hood of Mari's car. But I knew I was on camera, and I was already dealing with enough lawyers. I could see fast food garbage on the passenger side and piles of clothes in the back seat. Living the nightmare. That's what she'd done to her life and mine. I'm trying with the help of a professional to let go of the hate. But I saw no reason to treat her with one molecule of respect or decency. Everything about her was indecent, and sluts don't even respect themselves. At any rate, Nadia urged me to try and keep my answers to the yes or no variety if possible. I agreed to try, but explained there was only so much of my ex's bullshit lies and excuses I could listen to. She assured me she'd try to get us through the meeting as quickly as possible. When we sat back down, I just glared at Mari and her lawyer to let them know without saying a word they could both go F themselves. Nadia started the meeting back up by asking Mari if she'd sought out or received any therapy for herself. She claimed she didn't have the time while dealing with physical therapy, nor did she have the money as her insurance wouldn't cover therapy. Nadia asked if we paid for it if Mari would attend a few therapy sessions by herself. My head turned toward Nadia so fast when she asked that I thought I'd get whiplash. But she kicked me under the table to let me know she had everything under control. Her lawyer immediately said Mari would only see a therapist of her choosing regardless of who paid for it. Nadia indicated that was fine, but that some therapy might help her process her emotions to be a better mother in the future. I still thought Nadia had lost her mind proposing such a thing, but let her keep talking. Her counsel insisted they would talk about it and give us an answer in the future. My lawyer stated that in spite of being opposing counsel, as a woman she wanted to ensure that any women involved in cases she was involved, got the help they need. I won't lie. The way she said it was so convincing I seriously thought my own legal representative had turned on me. Mari asked if we could do counseling as a family unit. That time I kicked Nadia under the table to tell her there was no way in hell I'd agree to that. Nadia kicked me back before telling them if Mari went to several sessions and the therapist thought it would be beneficial, we might. I knew Nadia had a reason to be proposing what she did. Just wish she'd filled me in ahead of time. I knew I'd learn what the goal of her tactics were later, but I was perplexed until the meeting was over. I asked Mari if what she is now going through was worth all the cheap, meaningless sex with strangers. I seriously wanted to know if being able to bitch around for years was worth losing it all. I pointed out she had to enjoy what she was doing, or she wouldn't have kept doing it. I really wanted to know if those experiences were worth losing a loving husband and custody of her children. She began to weep what looked like sincere tears before telling me no. I asked if she felt any actual shame. I knew she felt tons of regret, if for nothing else getting caught. But I wanted to know if she felt ashamed for people to eventually know every deviant detail of her tawdry escapades. She claimed she very much did, especially now that her family knew. I asked if she really thought she could hide the truth from her family forever. She said she hoped to keep it all getting out at least until she started back to work and got a place of her own. But she knew it would come out eventually. She apologized for hurting me and claimed she never ever wanted to do that. I told her she didn't hurt me, she destroyed me. I told her every single day, all day long I feel pain. It's in my soul, but I can feel it in my joints, my muscles. But Advil brings no relief. My heart is so broken that when she poisoned my soul it seeped into my appendages. On a good day I feel numb. On a bad day, the tension fills my body. Depression causes physical aching sometimes, and some days I wake up feeling sore for no reason. She cried hearing me express the pain her actions were making me endure. I told her to tell me what I ever did to justify her betraying me so thoroughly and cruelly. She just cried harder. I asked her what she thought she deserved from me and life after the things she'd done. Not what she wanted, what she thought should happen to someone who literally destroyed her life away. She began to bawl. I was sick of the tears and lack of answers. I was done. The meeting ended with Mari's lawyer trying to get her out of the office as she repeatedly asked me to forgive her. I kept telling her to go home and drive her home somewhere else, because we were done talking. When they finally got off of the premises, I made Nadia explain why she'd proposed I pay for Mari to see a shrink. She explained doing so would be seen as a favorable act by the court. But Mari was clearly unstable and not coping with life very well. If a professional recommended or insisted she need to be hospitalized for her own good, well, c'est la vie. In a distraught state it is very easy to get yourself institutionalized at least overnight. Allowing her to see a professional might get her some help, but it also might help us when they see how frazzled she's become. She deceived me for more than 6 years about my entire life. I feel no guilt in not revealing my true intentions of why I actually want her to see a shrink. If she thinks family therapy is a possibility to get her to go, so be it. Mari is good at digging her own grave. I hope that continues. Final update after year. When I last posted, my soon-to-be ex-wife Mari had been kicked out of her parents' house for neglecting to tell them I am not the biological father of our daughter Carrie. I had informed them I'd caught their daughter cheating the same morning I told them about our wreck. However, she had not revealed to them that the guy I caught her with was just one in a long line of men with whom she cheated. Mari had been forced to live in her car because she had nowhere else to go after being disowned. Meanwhile, I was in the process of attempting to legally adopt Carrie, after having the court adjudicate I am not her biological father. And my attorney Nadia was attempting to get Mari to see a mental health professional of her choosing, in the hopes it might benefit me. Nadia recommended 2 local psychiatric practices to Mari's lawyer, saying we'd pay for her sessions, or she could choose any other therapist she wished to see. I had some major misgivings about having to pay for the sessions or doing anything that might actually benefit Mari. If you learn nothing else from my experience, take this advice to heart: love them or hate them, always listen to your lawyer. To make a long story short, Mari chose a local psychiatrist who instantly recognized she was mentally unstable. For her own well-being, she committed Mari to the local hospital's psyche ward overnight for observation. That overnight stay became many months under psychiatric care in hospitals. Due to confidentiality rules within the medical field, I never heard her actual diagnosis. But her attorney said each time he saw Mari she was heavily sedated and out of it. Those initial months she spent trying on designer straitjackets delayed the finalization of the divorce and child custody hearings. However, since Mari was not contesting and her counsel could stand in as her representation, there was no delay in my attempt to adopt Carrie. As sad as everything had recently been for me in my life, hearing that judge question Carrie and listening to her responses made me so unbelievably happy. Carrie didn't know she had ever been declared not my daughter by the court at my behest. So, it seemed funny to her for the judge to ask if she wanted me to be her daddy. I was so proud of her, though she couldn't understand why. She was just happy when I told her I loved her as she hugged me as her adopted father for the first time. I was glad Michael was also there, but even more grateful Mari wasn't. Neither Michael nor Carrie really had any understanding of what the hearing was about. But Carrie is now legally my daughter, even if we share no DNA. When I saw Mari cheating, it instantly removed all love I ever had for her. Until I was able to reunite with Carrie, I was so afraid that because of what her mother did, I would lose all love for her as well, or resent her. To still feel that love I always had for her again was such a relief. I would not have been in the wrong if I couldn't get past that, no matter what anyone wants to say. If paternity matters enough to the legal system to force a man to pay for a child that is his, it also matters enough for a man to not be able to accept a child that isn't. But damn it, I really needed Carrie in my life. I'd lost too much already, and she needed a dad who had already loved her for her entire lifetime. If I'm honest, there will always be a tiny part of my soul that will remain broken because she is not my biological daughter. I cannot put into words how devastating that was to find out and accept. I know I am doing the very best I can as a parent in this situation. I believe time given to children and love is far more important than anything any parent could buy them. So will always be my focus. Other than Mari's mental issues, there was truly no reason for the divorce not to be finalized. She wasn't getting a penny from me, and even her own lawyer admitted that in her situation, she had no hope of getting any custody at that time. If and when she got out of her padded cell paradise, if she found a safe place to live, she could petition the court to gain some type of visitation and her custody. The court appointed a legal aide to vouch for Mari being cognizant of what she was doing. Her lawyer got her to sign the divorce papers with witnesses and had them notarized. I had to show up in court with Nadia a week later for attorneys to get the judge to finalize some issues. 2 weeks later, I was legally divorced from the biggest mistake and waste of my life. I should have been happy about that, and I was. Signing the papers was the symbolic nail in the coffin to our marriage. Yet it all felt anticlimactic somehow. It amazed me how well Mari's family stuck to their guns in regard to disowning her after they found out everything she'd done. I'm sure some of that was due to wanting to stay on my good side, so they could visit with the kids. Even though her parents and sister knew she was in the psyche ward, they never even attempted a visit, nor did I obviously. But it was apparent from the times I talked to her parents how disgusted they were by their daughter's depravity. They were embarrassed for people to know what a tramp their daughter had been. I could empathize and sympathize. Knowing Mari had been run through more times than an oscillating lawn sprinkler in July made me ashamed to admit I had ever been intimate with her. Mandy made sure to let everyone know what her sister and Rebecca had been doing, short of paternity fraud of course. Between social media and face-to-face conversations with friends, word got out about their exploits. Within a month nearly everybody knew about her years of cheating and sexual immorality, and they all made plans to give her hell if they ever encountered her again. It was slightly humiliating for me having everyone know how foolishly trusting I had been. At the end of the day, in a relationship you either trust or you don't, and she'd never given me a single reason not to trust. It wasn't until a few months before I caught her that I even considered she could ever cheat. In hindsight, a few red flags were missed, but she covered her tracks well. I should have put an end to the girls' nights out obviously once her depression subsided, just out of principle. But that night she stayed out all night was the first and only time that had ever happened before. She'd call if she was going to be 15 minutes late, which was extremely rare. I was actually worried, because that was so unlike her, and I wanted to make sure she was safe. I know many people probably think I'm an idiot or blind for not knowing for so long. By keeping things strictly sexual and limiting the number of encounters with each man, she never developed any trails to follow. She wasn't glued to her phone or protective of it. I never felt the desire to snoop. She portrayed herself to be the beautiful, loving wife and mother. I wasn't the only one who was deceived. Many friends have told me face to face they were shocked to know she was cheating, and would have told me if they'd known. They had no idea any more than I did. If Mari had worn a dress with no panties on a windy day, and everyone within 40 feet of her could hear the ocean, that would have been obvious to me and everyone else. But everything she represented herself to be, to everyone, was a total lie. They wanted nothing to do with her, and nobody cared if she was kept in the ward the rest of her life. The only problem with no one having any contact with Mari was that it left us blindsided. Nobody alerted us when they decided to let her out. Laws prevented the hospital from letting us know due to doctor-patient confidentiality. I have no idea if she just convinced the doctors she was okay, or if they just felt like they had done all they could do to help her. But they released her on a Tuesday just before noon. She somehow made her way from the hospital to her car, which was parked at her lawyer's office behind his home. From there she took her car and drove to the kids' school. When she was informed that she couldn't see or check the kids out of school, she made enough of a scene that the school called me. I told them to call the police and that I would be there as fast as I could. On the way to my car, I called Mandy to let her know her baby sister was no longer using her Airbnb accommodations on Insanity Island. I told her I had no idea if she'd been released or escaped, but I'd find out when I got to the school. She said she'd call her parents, my parents, and Doug to let them know what was going on, and to keep them posted. By the time I got there, 2 cop cars and an ambulance were parked out front with lights flashing. I pulled into a parking spot, got out and headed toward the closest officer. After identifying myself as the ex-husband, he directed me through a side door which ended up being the school cafeteria. I was relieved to learn no one had alerted Michael or Carrie to the drama in the front office, and school had not recessed. The police had Mari seated at a cafeteria table and she tried to stand when she saw me, demanding to see her children. They kept her from approaching me, and I asked if they had checked with the hospital mental health ward to see if they had released her. The police informed me that while the hospital couldn't release certain information without a warrant, they had released her under her own cognition. Mari started crying and demanded to see her children. I told the cop I had full custody and there was no way in hell they were seeing her in such a frantic emotional state. She yelled at me that she wanted to see her children yet again. I told her to go have her lawyer file paperwork for visitation. But unless I saw an evaluation from some mental health professional telling me otherwise, she was an unfit parent and a manic mother. She said the kids are the only two people alive that still have any love left for her. I told her that was probably true, but they're just kids, and they don't know any better. The cop laughed, then managed to regain his composure. She tried to come at me, he held her back. She said she hadn't seen her children in months and that they were the only thing that got her through her time in lobotomy land. I explained I really didn't give a damn about her struggle to cope with the consequences of her own actions. But there was no way in hell I was subjecting our children to her lies and drama that day. I told the cop I wanted to file a restraining order on her to stay the hell away from me and the kids. He agreed to file the initial paperwork on my behest, but that a judge would have to determine if one was needed and sign it. He then explained to Mari since I was not going to allow her to see the kids, they had already talked to the principal of the school. She needed to leave immediately and not come back onto the premises until she could show a court order granting her partial custody. To my surprise, she didn't make an even bigger scene. I guess she realized nothing she could do at that moment would get her what she wanted. She grabbed her purse and keys before being escorted by an officer to her car. She got in and drove away while the other cop and I filled out the RO form on his tablet and talked with the principal. Soon enough the kids got out of school, and I loaded up Michael and Carrie to take home. I was about 2 miles from the school when I thought I saw Mari's car pull out from a fast food restaurant just after we passed by. I took the next right, and the next right, and the next right, until I was on the same street we'd been on. I could see Mari's car up ahead and sped up to try and figure out what she was doing. She was oblivious to the fact I'd managed to maneuver my way behind her. It was obvious she was looking for someone, and that very person was observing her. The kids didn't even recognize her car ahead of them. Thankfully, a Reddit user had urged me to get front and rear cameras with audio recorders installed in my vehicles. That gave me all the evidence I needed to prove Mari was stalking me and the kids even after being warned by the cops to stay away. I went straight to the police station and showed the magistrate footage of Mari waiting for us to pass by, pulling out and then losing us. She assured me the evidence would be submitted to the case judge, and I should hear I'd been granted the restraining order sooner than later. In 2 days while I was at work, I got a call from the police saying the restraining order had been filed and served that morning. They told me she was to stay 200 yards away from me and the children at all times. She was forbidden from contacting me or the kids in any possible way except via her attorney to my attorney. I was directed to immediately call the police if she did anything to break the RO. I felt some relief that at least I had the law on my side. But I fully expected her to ignore the restraining order by trying to contact me or the kids. To my surprise, nobody heard anything from Mari. Her sister said she had not tried to contact her or her parents. I fully expected her to seek out some type of free legal assistance to file for partial custody, but no one ever contacted Nadia. 2 months went by and honestly the longer we went without hearing from her or about her was a bit unnerving. But about 3 months ago when I got home there was a large manila envelope in the mail. The address was handwritten, and the return address only said Sydney, Australia. The voided stamps were Aussie. I truly couldn't imagine who had sent the envelope or why. But inside was an extremely long letter from Mari explaining where she was and assuring me she wouldn't be coming back. I was stunned when I got the letter, considering the postmark from so far away, and who it was from. The things she said in the letter probably left me even more astounded by her evil hedonistic rationale that allowed her to sleep at night. Her maniacal manifesto filled in many of the gaps about what she'd endured and what led her there. She explained that she essentially had a nervous breakdown during her initial therapy session. Pretty much the first 2 months she was hospitalized, she was heavily sedated and on various antidepressant and antipsychotic medications. She said for the longest time when she got there, she just wanted to die. Via therapy and by going to group discussions, she talked through her issues in an attempt to understand why she did what she did. She said the other patients in the group discussions kept looking at her like she was a complete dumbass for throwing everything away. They'd come from broken homes, abusive relationships, backgrounds with substance abuse and violence. Her life had been as easy as pie compared to their life struggles. When it finally clicked in her warped little mind how badly she'd screwed up and that none of her old life was coming back, she had another breakdown. Her first breakdown was due to facing her past, the second due to facing her future, or lack thereof. She went on to explain her feelings of loss and heartache in some half-assed attempt for sympathy. Mari had the audacity to claim that the morning I caught her cheating, what upset her was knowing I instantly didn't love her anymore, and never would again. She claimed over the years whenever she felt guilt for what she was doing, she rationalized it by telling herself I wouldn't love her if I knew what she was doing, and she wanted me to always love her. She was right, it instantly killed all love I ever had for her the moment I saw her naked with another man. She said to know I truly no longer loved her broke her heart, because despite all that she did she still loved me. She swore just because she'd had sex with all those men didn't mean she ever loved me any less. I'd hate to know how she would have treated me if she'd hated my guts. She had the audacity to call me her best friend and soulmate. She had no desire to have any romantic connection with anyone but me. She said having men openly tell her they wanted to do nothing more than bang her brains out and giving herself over to her primal instincts without a care in the world about consequences was such a rush. She confessed that after cheating a few times, Becca convinced her humans were never meant to be monogamous. She said she would have been more than willing to allow me to have sex with other women, but she knew I'd never want that. She said being able to hook up with some guy she met at the store and be home to make dinner made being just a mom and wife feel less hopeless and mundane. She tried to quantify that I somehow benefited from her having other sexual partners, because it taught her to be a better lover when she was with me. I would have far preferred a completely dead bedroom than being married to a wannabe sorority slut with a tramp stamp of the word next and an arrow pointing down. And what kind of guy would stick his dick inside any woman that gave it up that easily? Those guys are just worthless shits too. Next time go break one off instead of helping to break up a family. Call me old-fashioned. And I'm sure a lot of people that have read my story have called me that and far worse. But if you feel you need to explore your sexuality and be wild, that is your decision, you are completely entitled to do it. It seems today very few don't live their lives that way. But the time to explore and hook up is long before you have children. The time to do that is way before you marry. And it's sure as hell long before you reach the point of cheating on your husband with so many men you give birth to some stranger's child and tell your husband he's the father. However, if by going out, being wild and exploring your sexuality turns you into someone or something only the most hard-up desperate man would ever consider making a commitment to, so be it. If at any point while we were dating Mari had told me she needed to break up so she could go get pipe laid by random plumbers she just met, I would have been totally fine with it. That would have told me she lacked the morality, loyalty, and trustworthiness I wanted in a wife. If she'd revealed who and what she was when we were dating, it all could have been avoided. I would not have cared one iota who or how many men she had sex with, as long as I wasn't one of them. She was either always unworthy of my time and love or became unworthy via her unforgivable filthy actions. But just as she can't unbang all those men, I can't go back in time and keep her out of my life. Words be damned. Her actions have proved she is unworthy of anyone's time and certainly not love. She will end up a last call lay at some dive bar down under, allowing anyone drunk enough to still find her attractive to get their rocks off for 15 minutes of companionship. She wrote how much it broke her heart to get the petition notice that I was having my name removed from Carrie's birth certificate. Mari said she understood I couldn't even stand to look at her anymore after what she'd done, and our daughter was just a reminder of that. She claimed what hurt her even more was when she got my petition to adopt Carrie as my daughter. Because it showed her even though I could never give her a second chance, I had enough love in my heart to give a second chance to the very product of her infidelity. She said she struggled with feelings of being jealous of her Carrie. Knowing her kids would grow up receiving all the amenities she took for granted killed her. Frankly, her words spoke volumes about how truly self-centered truly is. She couldn't think of me and put me first, she couldn't even do that with her own children. Yet she hated knowing huge moments of her kids' lives would happen without her around to see them. She imagined pictures shared on social media reminding her of what she was missing and feeling like she'd been stabbed through the heart. She explained that when she was released after the events at the school that day, she went around that night trying to reconnect with old friends. The few people that would speak to her were very direct in what they thought of her, in that they wanted nothing to do with her. Most acted as if they didn't know her and just ignored her. A few warned her if they ever found out she'd been with their husband or boyfriend, God help her. But she realized her hometown had been poisoned against her. Her former boss and many coworkers knew, so there was no going back to her job. The other driver's auto insurance had given her a decent check each month to live on until she was locked away. She had to stop going to physical therapy, and the insurance company considered the matter of the accident and her injuries a closed case. She had no money. Getting a job close enough to potentially see the kids wasn't happening quickly, and she had to survive on her own. She pawned a few items to get by while she looked for jobs online, and that's when she said she met some guy from Australia online. It seems they chatted back and forth over the course of a few days, and he invited her for a visit. She'd already been seriously thinking of cashing in her 401k but was scared about paying the huge tax penalty at the end of the year. The invite to Australia was all it took for her to cash in the only chips she had. She said he's a really nice guy and has a son that needs a mom. Poor kid is getting Joan Crawford for a mom. And he's getting Amber Heard for his wife. It's safe to say he has no idea what she's done and what she's capable of. She's his problem now. She'll become an Australian citizen, won't have to pay the IRS, and she will never be my problem again. It was the last contact she made and will hopefully be the final contact she ever makes with me again, fingers crossed. Part of me thinks she heard Australia was founded as a penal colony and thought they said penile. But if it keeps that crazy hooker down under and out of my hair, she can do whatever she wants. I hate to be so flippant. Because I do sympathize with the citizens of Australia, as yet another venomous species becomes endemic to their ecosystem. But these are the ignominies you have to face as a people, for mocking planetary gravity generation after generation. Yes, I'm giddy that she's gone, and I have every right to be. But Australia, sincerely, thoughts and prayers. You all may want to get some of those guns back. Between providing antipsychotic medication and treating STDs, she may bankrupt your entire socialized medical system. Obviously, I hope she stays away. But a potential arrest upon return for tax evasion with the punishment being time served in federal prison will hopefully seal the deal. My therapist has helped me quite a bit, especially dealing with anger, though I'm sure no one reading this could tell. My therapist and I came to an epiphany during one heated session. For the longest time I was far angrier at myself than I was angry at Mari. People talk about forgiveness and how it sets a person free. I had so much anger built up inside I just assumed 100% of it was directed toward Mari. Nope. It turns out despite her flaws and missteps I held myself to a higher ethical standard. I was beating myself up with self-loathing because I couldn't believe I'd chosen so poorly. Yes, Mari was the deceitful lying shit, but at the end of the day I chose that and destroy my own life up. I can say without a doubt I would be much better off having never loved Mari, and that Lord Alfred Tennyson was an idiot. Lots of people asked about Rebecca. I found out that after Mari was kicked out of her parents' house, she did in fact go to Rebecca's. Apparently, my ex thought Becca owed her a place to stay at the very least after contributing to our marriage failing. Rebecca seemed to feel like all she had done was to enable Mari to do what she actually wanted to do and didn't owe her a damn thing. It's an interesting debate topic, one which apparently got heated. I have no idea who won, but that friendship ended with a lot of hair-pulling, profanity, and punching. Either way, word got out Rebecca had been involved in destroying my marriage and things got rough for her. I don't use any social media, no, I don't consider Reddit social media. But I'm told she was unfollowed, unfriended, and harassed online. In real life, 2 stylists quit her salon due to what she'd done. The ones that remained all had customers asking how they could still work there or if they'd change salons too. It took a month or 2 until she couldn't pay the lease and had to close up shop. The last anyone heard, Rebecca was working at her brother's restaurant in Connecticut as a hostess. When she left town, I wanted to have her condo bulldozed like Forrest Gump did to Jenny's childhood home due to all the heinous sex acts that occurred there. But the neighbors in the other 2 units weren't too keen on that idea. Quite a few people insinuated in comments that there was chemistry or something going on with my lawyer Nadia and me. I thought they'd been doing meth. Turns out, I am as oblivious as always when a woman is interested. After the divorce had been finalized, since she wasn't representing me in the civil suit that never happened, I went for drinks with her and several others in the practice to celebrate. As others left one by one, she said she had to talk to me about one more matter before I left. I assumed she was going to ask for a good review on the practice's website or something. She surprised me by telling me after working on my case she truly appreciated how loyal and dedicated I had been to my wife, and still am to my kids. She admitted over the course of the divorce she'd grown attracted to me but couldn't say anything as she had been my lawyer. She confessed I was very hard to read, and she couldn't tell if I had any attraction toward her at all. But she knew a good man when she saw one and she was going to shoot her shot. It was flattering to hear, especially after you've learned you weren't enough for your wife not to cheat with enough men to field 5 football teams. And Nadia even told me long before I gave her a well-deserved huge bonus check. So as distressing as I am, I think she was being sincere in what she said. She just told me if I ever wanted to go out and have a drink or talk to give her a call. Nadia is a beautiful woman. I don't think any guys could refute that except for the visually impaired ones. She's brilliant, genuinely talented, she has her shit together. It's pretty obvious she goes to a gym quite frequently, lawyers like to look good in the courtroom. And she dresses classy sexy, which the gentleman in me appreciates. At one hearing when she came into court in a pinstripe suit, I'm fairly certain the judge would have granted me custody of his kids after he saw her. Even as jaded as I am, I have to admit she would be a fantastic catch for any guy she chose to date. But for me, that, or any other juice, is just not worth the squeeze. I already know I would subconsciously judge her for her past, which she certainly does not deserve and could do nothing about. And unfortunately, any women I felt an inkling of interest in would be subject to that same unfair judgment. I had plenty of dudes message and urge me to go on a dating app and hook up with some random, just to get past the fact Mari is still the only woman I've been with. Sorry to the guys that will be disappointed to hear, but I could never do that. A friend showed me the local Tinder prospects. I will not be downloading the app. If I had any desire to get banging my second bedpost notch out of the way, as one message suggested, I would have gone the Nadia route. It pisses me off knowing Mari took something I used to really enjoy and removed that activity from my life forever. Now just thinking back to our past moments of intimacy make my skin crawl knowing she was doing those very same things and far more debased with many other men. In the eyes of most people in Western society today, the fact I've only been with one woman would either make me a prude or hard up. Yet I feel as filthy as a Victorian-era London streetwalker just due to the knowledge I've had sex with Mari. She took everything that made sex special to me and made it impossible for me to experience again. Our exclusivity, our vows, and union were pissed away so she could experience sucking a random cock that didn't belong to her husband. And then she lied. Oh my God, did she lie? Because she lied, for the longest time I'd think back to any positive thing she ever said about me and believe it to be a lie too, just because she said it. She made me doubt my sanity, my parenting, my strength, and my worth. I don't want to ever go back to that. I won't go back to that. I have no one and yet I'm still living. That proves there isn't a woman out there I can't live without. I'm already doing it. I have no hate for women at all and want the best for them because Carrie too will be a woman someday. But there is absolutely nothing any woman on this planet has that would enrich my life in the least, only complicate it. If there aren't some women who feel that way about men, there should be. Human beings, both male and female, are a scourge upon each other. Not worth the time and energy, and not to be trusted. Many people asked questions pertaining to finding Carrie's biological father. I have done quite a bit of research into DNA ancestry sites. My biggest issue is that if there is an existing match, the companies also alert the other person. If Carrie took a test which revealed a cousin, an uncle, or even her dad, I'm her protector, I don't want anyone to come looking. She's a healthy child with no apparent genetic defects, so I'm going to wait quite a while to do any testing. My mindset as of this day is to wait at the very least until her mid to late teens. But I could envision waiting until her 20s to let her make the decision. Honestly, I've also considered never telling her I'm not her father. Truly, if there is any advice I could still use from Reddit, it would be questioning at the end of the day what would truly be best for Carrie. Do you think never telling her now after all that has happened would be a good or bad thing? Should I wait until she is a teen or an adult at 18 to tell her and begin the search? I'm not worried about me, I already know the truth. I'm trying to prepare for any future scenarios, both good and bad. How likely is it she will have some medical condition she will need to know her paternal medical history? Please know, any DNA genealogy testing will likely happen several years down the road at the earliest. With her mom out of her life so recently, I don't want to do something that could make her feel less secure, safe, and confident in her own identity, and mine. It's odd to be in the situation I am, and to sincerely hope both kids took after their fathers.